I'd like to welcome everyone today to our podcast, The Heart of Food and Beverage by Good to Grow. Today, we are sitting down and chatting with Celeste Trujillo from The Better Butchers. Welcome, Celeste.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's so funny. One of the things that hits me every time and we all have to do this in the office, when we think about your company, we go, The Better Butchers. Like we mix with, what was the company called, the previous company?
The Very Good Butchers.
The Very Good Butchers. Okay.
There was a time where both of them existed at the same time.
Oh,
it's
you're
very
kidding.
Awkward.
Oh, tell that story. I didn't know about that. No.
Yeah. When Mitchell started the company in September 2022, and the VGB, I guess, ended somewhere in February.
Okay.
So there was some months where I was working at the VGB. I was helping him out, setting up the new company because I like working with Mitchell anyway. That's separate. But I didn't know he was going to call it The Better Butchers. I just, cut this out. But anyway, there was a time where both companies existed, and that was a little bit awkward, especially for the people who were actually working at the VGB.
Okay. Which also just kind of makes sense why it came out so quickly then, right? Because it was actually already in existence.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, at that point, obviously we didn't know that VGB wasn't going to make it.
Right.
And that would have been more awkward.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
At this point is definitely an opportunity to, I would have done that anyway, and rethink and how can we make it better from the learnings of the actual company and what we went through together, but also all throughout, for product development specifically.
So in essence, was this your product idea that you came up with, or?
It was like, there was a lot of ideas about cultivated meat and mycelium and mushroom protein, whatnot at the VGB. We already had that idea, but once you invest literally on capital, equipment, you kind of set yourself with a specific technology.
Right.
So it wasn't that easy for us, especially at that time, for us to pivot in that way.
Okay.
So the idea was already there, but it was about, for me specifically as a founder or co-founder, it was about when you actually do product development, you set up recipes and processes, you really set up the company. And as an R&D, you can actually really mess things up. And you can actually set up a process that is really finicky. And I've worked in companies before, not only VGB, where you set it up as plant-based imitation, and it really complicates everything. So for me, it was about simplicity and how can we do this actually better, not only in the product itself, but actually operationally.
The process, right. Okay. And okay. Because you know what? The thing is that what I found so interesting is just the level of positive feedback from when you were in Pitch and Plate and pitching. And just for the folks that are listening, I know I've mentioned it before, but Pitch and Plate is a pitch event that helps local food companies pitch to institutional food service customers. And that would be healthcare, post-secondary institutions. And Celeste, you presented on behalf of the Better Butchers, and the feedback was just unbelievable. They just loved your product. It was really palpable in the room that everybody went this is a fantastic product. So, yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah. So, have you seen any results from that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is so amazing for us. The support that we got from some of the chefs that were there. We didn't know exactly who they were, right?
Yeah.
But pitching to chefs, that's a different level. I'm glad I didn't know.
Yeah.
But they now have new samples, and we're going through actually how can we activate it and actually have it in their hospitals or at their universities be showcased. And that was the second go of us just sending samples where we didn't really make it for them.
Yeah.
And absolutely, they're still saying I sent emails. We always screenshot, I sent it to the team because it's massive when people say they love it. And for plant-based meats, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
So we're hoping in the summer and the fall we'll be in summer universities and hospitals. really, really amazing.
Are you
Thank you.
really gonna focus more on the food service component of the business, or are you looking at really both a retail and a food service strategy?
We're doing both and e-commerce as well.
Oh, wow,
I
okay.
think like the easiness of e-commerce is that we don't have to wait for reset dates or wait for certain distributors to pick us up
Right.
or a specific SKUs that retailers want to have on their
Mhm.
shelves.
Mhm.
E-commerce opens that up for us, but for the actual product itself, when you develop it, you think about food service all the time because the margins for us are way bigger. And
Volume too, I
the
guess.
volume, yes,
Yeah, right?
volume and margins and also brand awareness. When
Mhm.
people ask, "What is this?" and it's great. You kind of touch a lot of people in different, demographics.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I'm excited to do it all, I guess.
That's cool. That's cool. I would like to pivot to just talk a little bit about you and your background and what brought you here and just you as a person. So you come from where to here? Maybe tell that story?
Yes, I am from northern Mexico, the Arizona border state, Sonora. And I came to Canada a long time ago to do my master's at the University of Guelph in
Oh, wow.
nutrition. And that's where I started with a professor called Amanda Wright. She's amazing. And she gave me my first chance, right? That was amazing. The university is great, but also I learned a lot in my thesis or not. But ultimately, coming to BC was because of my husband. He works in the film industry. So once
Okay.
we moved here, I started actually my career in working as a QA and anything to get my foot into the food industry. I didn't know I was gonna love it. I actually just wanted a job, and once in it, I really love manufacturing. So I just like started building from there, and stepping stones.
Okay.
Really going for it, I guess.
When you were younger though, like when you were younger, when you were a child,
Yeah.
did you love food? Did you like what got you into the science of it?
Um, my mom is a naturopathic doctor and a vegetarian.
Oh,
And
wow.
well, back in the day, honestly, vegetarian food was not good. Shout out to my mom. She did the best she could with the ingredients there were, right? But it was a resonating thing in my household to eat healthy and not eat as much meat. And for Mexican cuisine, that was a big deal.
Right.
And she would make, traditional Mexican dishes into vegetarian. And that's how I grew up. Really just like a very normal thing, but also healthy didn't taste good to me. It's just a thing of like being, healthy. And so I got into food for that reason, but also really loving to eat. I didn't want to eat healthy food at that point. I just wanted to eat good food. A lot of food scientists speak the same way. We say we're not nutritionists, we're food scientists. We love food.
Right.
But down the road, obviously, those values just come back. And now the purpose, as I see it, is can we have healthy food that is ethical but also tastes great?
Right.
And the taste great is also, it's almost like the first thing for me. Can people be excited and everybody not sacrifice and just have like another dish that happens to be not animal or whatever,
Right.
but it tastes really good and
Yeah.
it's exciting. So that's a new path, and we have a very good product developer right now.
Do you
So, yeah.
think so are you saying then that the way that you were raised in the food wasn't quite as good as you wanted it to be?
Yeah.
So that is something that I just wonder. It's so funny because someone at another podcast was talking about that, and really her background ended up helping her to develop products because of something that would seem completely unrelated, right? Completely unrelated to what she was doing, but really not. And so it can be kind of that North Star of like, it's got to taste good because when I was a kid, it just didn't cut it,
That's so funny. I didn't think, like, this is like almost therapy. I never thought about that, Andrea. Yes, maybe. Yes, perhaps. I used to not like that food.
Yeah.
But it was, I used to think, and I still think, oh, okay, but it's healthy. Well, I'll eat it anyway. And still a situation with plant-based meats, as I see it personally, there's still a big gap and an opportunity there for it to taste really good without, I guess, the guilt.
And so just maybe explain to the folks listening what products you're making right now.
We started with ground product, as we see is like the easiest product that you can see in many cuisines, and very easy entry product. And it's just a ground product made with oyster mushrooms and pea protein. Oyster mushroom is really cleaning the taste of the pea protein and actually giving it that meaty texture without us having to over process. But also just like from the protein onwards is just seasoning, spices, instead of using flavors. I wasn't a fan of using flavors in my product development years. It's just like in production, it just doesn't feel right to be adding something where you need so much PPE, protection equipment. And I wanted to make sure that it was something that, when you eat meat, you don't have those things.
Right.
When you eat meat, you just have the thing. And it was very important to me to not sacrifice that either. And just like as wholesome as you can, but also that protein, and also just having the experience of chewing with meat is very important to me, I guess, and many others.
Yeah, no, that's true. And so if you looked at your lineup right now that it's basic ground, does the future look like value add with the ground, or does it look like completely different product lines, or what's your vision for?
What's next is what you would typically see in the butcher shop. And we're going into steps. We're a startup, so we really did start from zero. We don't have the capabilities and resources, but what we have is an idea. So then obviously ground is the easiest, but our new product we will be launching at CHFA. We're very excited about it. So excited is like we're going to continue with this new category as I see it. It's a hybrid, we call it, which is we're not hyper realistic and we're not like veggie ground either, kind of like hippie. We're in between. And there's not a lot of players there, which is totally fine, but it's in between. Can we have something that actually, has that experience of eating meat without, actually being mushy? So what's coming out next? I haven't seen it out. And I'm excited. To be honest, it is because I don't have it in my household, and I need to. It's solving a problem that I cannot find. I have that problem myself as a vegetarian.
Right.
So I need to.
You're solving your own problem.
I'm solving my own problem. And I know that,
That's good.
I'm solving it maybe for others as well.
Of course you are, yeah. And nothing like it. I mean, there's lots of folks out there that make products and they may be plant-based products, but they don't live a 100% plant-based lifestyle, right? And so I think that can be quite motivating if you are and you're looking for things to augment your own meals.
It's very
makes
personal.
a lot of sense.
It's
Yeah, it's
the
very
most personal
personal.
it's been, yeah.
Yeah, that's neat. That's cool. Okay. So as we know in the startup journey and opening companies, running companies, building companies, it's extremely stressful. So what would be your piece of advice for those that are coming in and doing this from scratch? Because you've had an experience with being part of a company that actually didn't make it, as I have. And so that feeling, what that feels like. And there's folks that are coming up and saying, oh, I really have this great, granola bar or whatever. And what would your advice be for someone that's in that startup mode?
Because almost like I need the advice. But please take it with a grain of salt. But I don't know, if you really feel strongly about adding value and that your product is actually adding value, then, that's going to be your drive every single day. And, at the end of the day, it's about what you believe, what you're doing. And for me, it's definitely not been about recognition or money. Because I don't have any of those. But it's about really, like, we are here for only an amount of time. And anything can change. As we've seen it every single day, things change. And what are you going to do while you're here? And if you can, again, add value, and if you can do something better, and again, if we can rely less on big corporations and smaller business, that's good for everybody. If we can create a company with proper values and leadership, and then you can really affect not only people who are consumers, but actually people who work in your company, that's massive to me. And that's really another dream that I have, which is not only eat delicious food, but actually have a company that I have dreamt about and the things that I didn't really experience, which is, leadership in a way that I never experienced it. And I'm hoping and I'm trusting that I can do that.
Well, that was very inspiring words you just said. So somebody listening to that, I think that does sound like it's coming from a leader, actually.
Oh.
Even if you feel like you don't know everything, but neither do leaders. They don't. They don't. They actually know. All they know is what they don't know, and they try and find what they don't know, and they welcome it, right? So they don't know everything. So I think it's great to also put that forth the way that you did, in that you aren't saying like, hey, this is your money train, off you go. Like, it's kind of like, no, it's got to be something really close to your heart, right? It's got to be something that you really love. Because like you said, you're not doing it for, right? You're doing it for different reasons. And actually, to be honest, the folks that I've seen come through that have said like, oh, I just want to build this and, sell it. And they typically don't do so well and kind of drop it quite fast, because the amount of love and dedication, it's like a child, right? It's like you have to put it into that in the same way. You have to put the same kind of amount of love and caring and, and nurturing into it. And things will always go sideways and upside down. And, so yeah, so I think it's really good advice. I think the other thing too is it makes me think about what we were talking about before we started the podcast, which is just with everything that's going on. And I feel like in the middle of this table could be the US and it's Canada and Mexico.
Right.
We're friends. We're good friends. And I think that's another thing that's kind of, when you were talking about, because everything changes and can change from one day to the next. This is also a really interesting topic around folks that are coming into the industry. Do they or don't they? Given what is happening, do you or don't you step up and do something like this? Do you have any thoughts around that?
I just it is going to be a lot of sacrifice. And if I understand the question correctly, one of my biggest mentors I've had, Terry Turney, he always explained to me, what is your intention coming into this? And as I've seen a lot of people come in, if your intention is to make money, if your intention is to validate yourself, if your intention is to whatever it is that isn't really creating value, it's not going to work down the road, and it's really going to affect a lot of people. And I've actually been that person. I've seen a lot of people. So really, go deep inside, and, if that is your intention, sorry, am I answering the question properly?
You are answering it beautifully, actually. Yeah, because that resonates so much for me, because actually when I teach, that's the first thing I talk about is intention for your business. Does anybody have a business plan here? And half the room doesn't put their hand up. And I say, well, you haven't set an intention for your business. And a lot of times it's fear, right, that drives people not to do these things. Well, I'm going to fail anyway, so I might as well just run at it and see what happens. Well, we kind of know how that's going to go. Right. And so I think I feel a kindred spirit here.
Yeah,
because I think intention is incredibly important to what you're doing, whether it's business or anything in life, right? I think intention is incredibly important. So, and maybe that transcends sort of all the difficulties or the things that are coming up, because if it wasn't that, it would be something else, right? Like, you've talked about processes. And of course, you're so involved on the operations side of business that you would know, like getting your products certified, right? Getting your place HACCP certified or SQF or any of those things is just, people don't think that way when they're going into a business, opening a business. They just think, I'm going to make widgets and I'm going to sell millions of them, And it's like, no. There are all kinds of barriers to get there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen it. I'm just grateful to know what I know, and start, in that kind of mindset of creating something that is actually gonna be sustainable, not necessarily ecologically sustainable, but actually for people sustainable. And I also worry because coming from the food industry, I have worked with so many founders and so many leaders. And when they know no, and they are your leaders, and they don't know what to expect. And there again, what's their intention? And it's devastating because as a food scientist, you're there because you love food.
Right.
And that is a distinction. And it's not necessarily because I kind of fell into it. I really love food. And in that environment, a lot of people have left the food industry, and a lot of people who are valuable to Canada, to BC, to everywhere, and they have left. And because they get disappointed. And so then it is important to me. It is important that can we create, also founders that are humble and they know what they're going into, and also just know that it's not all about them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Does that make you nervous to say that?
Yeah, well, I'm not no shade intended. I'm really hopeful.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I know. Because I think it is going to take that. I think moving forward, I think, to be quite honest, I think we've been quite asleep. Quite asleep to just, almost like somebody said the other day, COVID made us think about local, and the tariff threat is making us buy local. Right. So it's like we needed this. I guess we needed it, and I talk a lot about in the bad is the good. And so maybe these challenging things had to happen in order for us to wake up and to set a better intention, right? Not set an intention of, they'll look after us. It'll all be fine. It's like, no, we have to step into this and look after ourselves, right? So,
and that's why I'm very grateful to you and the program, because it is about that awareness. And when I talked in the the follow-up meetings with the chefs and the executives, buyers, they would say, this is not it's not common. And Andrea brought us here together, and I've never had this experience before. So it didn't really exist for them either.
Right.
And creating that space is so important. It's so important. We don't need to depend on anybody else. And the more we support, we can make more jobs, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think there has to be a shout out here to the Ministry of Agriculture and Food as well for their Feed BC program, because that they allowed this to happen because of the funding, right? So being able to, and AAFC, to be able to support an initiative like this. My first job was at Yves Veggie Cuisine for Yves Potvin, and he came to our pitch and plate event last year at BCIT, and he spent half his time pitching, talking about the fact that that I worked with him at Yves and that he could never get into this market channel. He's like, I don't know how this has happened, that we could now get into the institutional food service market channel. This is just unprecedented. So
that's amazing.
It was quite funny, but it also really put it in perspective. Yves been doing this for 40 years, right? So, or close to 40 years. And so, of course, it's like, wow, this is really surprising, shocking, but in a good way. It is something that really, I don't think any other province is doing it. And I really feel like this is this is what we've been kind of screaming about for the last, 15 years, right? Is that we really do need to be kind of focusing on these companies and helping them really get successful in BC, because if you can make a go of it, if you can actually have the majority of your business coming out of the province, well, then, you're hitting so many great sustainability goals as well as financial goals, right? And so to me, it's and shouldn't we all know who all the BC companies are? Even I've been surprised with people that have applied for Pitch and Plate, and I don't know them.
No.
I've never heard of them. I'm like, oh, didn't know you existed. Oh, and you're a pretty big company. Wow. Yeah. So I think we should know, every company and product that's out there that's within our region and certainly within our country, right? I think we should make it our business to know who that is. Somebody said to me the other day that Switzerland does a great job of only supporting Swiss, right? They really are very focused on supporting products and services and everything that's coming out of Switzerland because they want to create a very strong economy. And so I'm like, well, I mean, we should do that too.
Yes. I think the major thing that I've seen now as a founder is the expectation about this hockey stick growth that is completely unsustainable, and that the only way to tap into that growth is going into the US. And so then you kind of have to skip But it's so great to not have that also, that you don't have that VC money. So then you don't have that kind of expectation. So then you can grow your business sustainably, starting in VC, just when in your,
Yeah, and I think if you talk to most people, if you talk to an Eve Potvin, if you talk to the folks from Nature's Path or any company that's been around for quite a long time and has grown their business, I honestly think that that hockey stick thing has got a lot to do with tech. Because when tech came in and said, we're going to make, meatless burgers and we're going to, all those things, I think they just threw money at it to try and see how fast they could hockey stick it. And, and yet if I look at all the companies I've worked for, like, that's not what happened. That's not how they grew. They did not grow that way. They had big wins at home first. And then they started getting wins in other markets, right? So it's interesting to me that that's something that is still out there as as a thing. It's just not really a thing. Food is a longer process to get, and you ask anybody, get a listing in Canada from a big chain retailer that wants you, and you're still waiting 8, 9, 10, 12 months for the PO, right?
Yes.
Is there anything you want to talk about today? Like, is there anything you want to mention or?
Well, right now, the situation with the tariffs, it's almost like I was just thinking about how working in food is like an uphill battle anyway, because of what we're speaking. But actually, just like specifically right now, what's happening, it's more important than ever to support businesses. We depend on a lot of ingredients outside of products, just like us depending on ingredients coming out of Canada. Canada has the most agriculture. How is that possible? What is happening? And sometimes ingredients from Canada are more expensive than anywhere else. And it puts you in a situation where if you want to meet what consumers are expecting to buy a product for, then you need to buy that ingredient. And right now what's happening is maybe what you're saying, that we're being pushed to not only the finished products, but actually our supply chain to be better. And every facet possible, like not only the technology, but how can it be more, a little bit more economical? And how can the government subsidize plant-based? Because we're also feeding people.
Right.
And when you see other programs, that's important too. And we haven't seen the effects of anything that's happening right now with the immigrants, how they're being treated. And the fields are empty right now without being harvested. We don't know those effects. And that is only going to affect the consumer. And which is you and me, by the way.
Yeah.
In terms of this is everybody. So all these things do matter. Every single thing affects every single thing.
Yeah.
And for us, we do need to be more together than ever, partner up with ingredient suppliers. Ingredient suppliers that are massive. Look at the smaller businesses. We have a lot of potential too. And can we work it out? For resilience for the country, but also for pandemics and for anything else that can happen.
I know, because it can be anything, anytime, right? This is what we're seeing, is that it's just been one thing after another. And now this is like, of course, right? Of course this would happen. Everything else has, fires, floods, disease. Now, yeah, of course, right?
And then we have it all here. We have very good universities, very good people, tons of talent.
Yes.
Can we all kind of work together and not see each other as competition? We are not.
Right.
We are not competitors. And I've seen that a lot. I've felt that a lot. And, it's not like that. It's not like that. And the more we do it together, I feel like it's going to be better. And I welcome anybody who would like to work with us. This is it. We're not competing with each other.
Yeah.
And I hope that if this resonates with anybody, please come. We welcome partnerships here at the Better Butchers.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, so I think it's interesting when you were talking about the not being in competition with others. I've actually seen over the last, I want to say 7 or 8 years, that actually it's become less and less that way, that when I was actually processing, it was terrible. People would not share information or come together at all. And so I do see that it's quite a different time now where people are a little bit more willing to collaborate and come together. And And, it's also the reason why we do things like, we have a cohort for emerging businesses that I hope you join one day, to support, with tools and learning and things like that. And then we also have our upcoming From the Ground Up trade show. And this year we have a third day, and it will be a consumer show, so open to the public.
That's great.
So, yeah. And so for us, I feel like that is just completely aligned with what's happening right now, where, you can go into a grocery store and say, okay, where are all the little Canadian flags? But you can also go to a show and see 80 companies under one roof, in June this year, to see who is local. Really, right? These are all just BC companies, but they're still Canadian, but all local products, so that then you can walk around, try things, buy things, and really get a real feel for supporting these companies.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'll be there.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. Well, thank you, Celeste,
Thank
for
you, Andrea.
meeting with me. That was wonderful. Great to spend time with you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry if I rambled.
That's okay. You did not.